Welcome back to Quiet Fortune. Today's story begins with a brutal truth. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence, but because they wait. They wait for the perfect moment, the right inspiration, the ideal plan. And while they wait, others with less talent but more courage quietly win. Part 1. Why now is the only real time we ever have? Most people are waiting. They're waiting for the perfect timing, the right alignment, the best opportunity, or some external sign that says you're ready now. But here's the hard truth, that moment almost never comes. If you look at how success works, real grounded success, not the kind that explodes overnight and disappears in a flash, it always begins before people feel ready. The people who win are not the most talented. They're not the ones with the most resources or the best plans. They're the ones who started when things were still uncertain. They moved while others were still thinking. Why? Because starting creates momentum, and momentum is the most underrated force in life. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you hesitate forever, you'll always lose to the one who started dumb, but early. In Eastern thinking, especially in Chinese business culture, there's an old principle: do not wait for the rain to stop. Learn how to build your roof while it's raining. This idea is profound. It means life is messy, unpredictable, and full of chaos, but progress doesn't wait for ideal conditions. If you sit and wait for the perfect timing, life will keep passing you by. So why do so many people wait? Because perfectionism is just fear in disguise. Because waiting feels safe. Because doing nothing feels like control when in fact it's just stagnation. I'll start when I have more money. I'll launch after I study one more course. I'll begin once I feel fully ready. These are lies the comfort zone tells you to keep you stuck. And the truth is, the longer you wait, the more energy you waste. You start building castles in your mind. You imagine all the possible problems. You become an expert at planning, but a complete beginner at action. In Chinese business philosophy, there's another lesson. The person who dares to make mistakes will learn faster than the person who fears them. That means your first version will probably suck. Your first product might fail. Your first video, your first sale, your first launch, it might all be terrible. But that's not a problem. That's a gift. Because while others are still perfecting their plans, you're gaining real data, real experience, real momentum. Let's take an example. Two people want to start a small online business. Person A spends 6 months researching, taking notes, analyzing competitors, buying online courses, attending webinars, and waiting to feel ready. Person B spends 2 days watching a few tutorials and launches a terrible landing page. It's ugly. It converts terribly. But it exists. Guess what happens after 3 months? Person A is still reading. Person B has iterated 3 times, gained their first few customers, and now understands their niche better than any course could ever teach. Person A knows what should work. Person B knows what does work. This is what separates the movers from the dreamers. It's not about starting well. It's about starting at all. Because the most perfect plan in your head is still just theory. But the messiest step forward in real life, that's progress. And once you move, something strange happens, doors open, resources appear, people offer to help. Life begins to rearrange itself around your motion. Motion attracts opportunity. Stillness attracts decay. In psychology, there's something called activation energy. It's the small but critical push required to start something. It's the hardest part. But once you start, even if it's small, the brain flips from protection mode into creation mode. You stop worrying and start building. This is why the start now mindset always wins. It builds muscle, it builds momentum, and it builds reality. If you look at every successful person you admire, they have one thing in common. They started before they were ready. Because deep down they knew, done is better than perfect. Motion beats planning, and now is always the best time. Part 2. Perfect timing is an illusion. Real growth happens in the doing. There's a myth that drags countless people into paralysis. If I wait for the right moment, everything will work out perfectly. But life doesn't follow scripts. It doesn't pause and say, okay, now you're fully ready, go ahead. No storm waits for you to finish building the boat. No opportunity asks if you're confident enough to accept it. In fact, the people who thrive in business and life and wealth are the ones who stop asking for permission. They don't wait for confidence, they build confidence by acting. In Eastern traditions, particularly Taoist thinking, there is deep respect for imperfection and movement. Water never waits. It flows through rocks over obstacles around resistance. That's how success works too. If you stand still trying to plan every possible step, you'll miss how life moves. But when you move, when you flow, you adapt, you shift, you learn. Every single entrepreneur who made something real started ugly. Their first designs were embarrassing. Their first presentations were awkward. Their first clients were skeptical. But they didn't stop, because they understood a fundamental truth. Starting is not about looking good, it's about becoming good. Here's something the West doesn't talk about enough. Waiting is expensive, not just in money and energy and emotion in lost years. Every day you wait is a day further from clarity. A day you could have tested something, gotten feedback, changed your strategy. But most people stay in the loop of overthinking, doubting, comparing, procrastinating, starting again tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week becomes next year. Before they know it, 5 years have passed, and they're still planning to start. Let's flip the perspective. Imagine if you had started 5 years ago, even clumsy, even wrong, even poorly. Where would you be now? Would you be rich yet? Maybe not, but you'd be wise, experienced, resourceful, and so much further ahead than the person who's still almost ready. This is why the start now mindset is priceless. It doesn't mean reckless action. It means deliberate, imperfect motion fueled by the understanding that progress always beats perfection. Chinese business people often operate under the principle, if you're 70% ready, launch. The rest will be fixed in motion. This terrifies perfectionists. They want 100% certainty. But the marketplace doesn't reward perfection. It rewards speed, adaptability, and persistence. The person who learns in public will always outperform the person who prepares in private forever. Take YouTube as an example. So many creators never upload their first video because they want the lighting perfect, the voice smooth, the topic just right. Meanwhile, another creator films on an old phone, uploads something honest, and gets feedback. That feedback shapes the second video, then the third, then the 10th. After 20 uploads, the quality is naturally high, not because it was planned perfectly, but because it was refined through doing. This is the pattern. Start, suck, adjust, improve, grow. Repeat until you're undeniable. There's also something spiritual about starting now. It shifts you from passive observer to active participant in your life. You stop consuming and start creating. You stop wishing and start transforming. This simple shift rewires your identity. You no longer say, someday I'll be a writer. You say, I am a writer because I write. You no longer say, one day I'll be an entrepreneur. You say, I'm building something even if it's small today. That's the power of now. No more waiting. No more hoping for better conditions. Start before you're ready. Act before you feel confident. Move before the moment feels perfect. Because by the time the perfect moment arrives, it may be too late. Someone else already did what you were thinking about. The world rewards the doers. In Part 3, momentum builds identity and identity shapes destiny. Why does starting now matter so much? Because what you do today, even if it's tiny, even if it feels useless, begins to shape how you see yourself. And how you see yourself is everything. Let's say you want to build a business. You tell yourself, I'll launch when I'm more confident. But confidence is not a gift that drops from the sky. It's a reward earned through repetition and momentum. You'll never think your way into being ready. You act your way into becoming the kind of person who is. Every time you start, especially when you're afraid, especially when you're uncertain, you tell your brain a story. I'm someone who moves. I'm someone who takes risks. I don't wait for permission. That identity will carry you further than any course, mentor, or plan. Because now you're not just an observer, you're a builder, a creator, a risk taker. And momentum becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. You start, you see progress. You feel more confident. You start again. Now let's talk about the cost of not starting. The longer you wait, the more your identity forms around inaction. You start to believe, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe this dream isn't for me. And those beliefs quietly poison your self-image. Not because they're true, but because you repeated them for so long, your brain accepted them as fact. This is why starting even badly is an act of liberation. You're breaking the cycle of hesitation. You're creating a new feedback loop that says, I'm doing this, I'm becoming this. In Chinese culture, there's a concept that goes beyond productivity. It's about alignment with the flow of life. The Tao favors those who act in rhythm, not those who wait for certainty. That means life is not about control, it's about harmony. And harmony comes from movement, not from planning perfection. So if you feel stuck right now, here's a question to ask yourself. What's the smallest possible action I can take today that moves me toward this dream? Can you write 50 words? Can you make one call? Can you register a domain? Can you sketch an ugly prototype? Small moves are not small, they're seeds. And seeds become trees, but only if they're planted. Many people die with ideas still in their head. Not because they weren't good ideas, but because they waited too long to act. They wanted conditions to be perfect. They wanted everyone to support them. They wanted to feel ready. But readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. Imagine if Elon Musk waited until rockets were cheap before starting SpaceX. Imagine if Jack Ma waited until the Chinese internet was perfect before starting Alibaba. Imagine if you wait 5 more years still sitting on your gift, your story, your business. And what will you say then? I could have. I should have. I almost did. That's not a story worth telling. Here's the truth. You don't need clarity to begin. You gain clarity by beginning. You don't need to be sure. You need to be moving. Even if the first 10 steps are wrong, they'll lead you to the 11th, which is finally right. But standing still teaches you nothing. So ask yourself, what identity am I reinforcing today? Every action builds the story you tell yourself. Procrastinate. You reinforce hesitation. Overthink. You reinforce doubt. Start. You reinforce courage. Continue. You reinforce strength. Momentum doesn't just build results, it builds you. Part 4, build while others hesitate, the hidden advantage of early action. There's a quiet advantage no one talks about. The advantage of starting while others hesitate. When you start now imperfect, clumsy, unsure, you gain ground that they can never catch up on. It's not just about skills, it's about timing, data presence, awareness, connections, resilience. It's about being in the game while others are still debating which shoes to wear. In traditional Chinese business philosophy, there's a term called Dongzhong Kusheng, meaning victory comes from movement. This principle is everywhere. The marketplace rewards speed. The algorithm rewards consistency. The mind rewards momentum. While others are caught in mental simulations of what might happen, you're out there creating actual outcomes. And that gap between the thinker and the doer widens quickly. Let's say 100 people want to start an online business. 90 will never begin. 7 will start then quit within a month. 2 will persist long enough to learn something real. 1 will keep going until it works. The question is, do you want to be the 1 who wins or the 99 who wonder? Starting early doesn't mean finishing fast. It means being ahead of time in mindset, not just action. Because here's another truth. Most success is delayed, but most people quit early. They mistake slow progress for failure. They forget that every tree begins underground. They don't see results after 30 days, so they assume nothing's happening. But the compounding curve always looks boring in the beginning. It feels like you're digging and digging and nothing is changing, until one day it explodes upward. And everyone calls it overnight success. But you know better. You were planting seeds while they were still deciding which soil to use. That's the secret of starting early. You build while others prepare. You adapt while others hesitate. You grow while others delay. And in a year, 2 years, 5 years, that gap becomes impossible to close. Because while they are thinking about it, you've become it. Here's what most people don't realize. Action doesn't just build outcomes, it builds options. Start a YouTube channel today. In 6 months, you might be monetized. Start writing today. In a year, you might have a book or a community. Start investing today. In a decade, you might have real financial freedom. Start failing today. And in 3 failures, you might find your breakthrough. But none of these options exist for the person who never starts. They remain stuck in theory. They remain slaves to potential. They become experts at not doing. So what's the final message of this chapter? Start now. Not because you're ready, but because waiting is a silent killer of dreams. Start even if you don't know what comes next. Start even if your hands are shaking. Start with version 0.1, the ugly, awkward, fragile version. Because 6 months from now, that version will be unrecognizable. You will be unrecognizable. Not because everything is perfect, but because you chose motion over safety. You chose action over illusion. You chose to become the person who does. In a world addicted to delay, the person who starts today is rare. The person who keeps going is powerful, and the person who dares to be imperfect is unstoppable. Start small, start messy, start now. If this message sparked something inside you, consider subscribing to Quiet Fortune. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, or tell us what you're quietly building right now. Until next time, stay still, stay sharp, and keep moving forward.